Welcome back to Music Theory 1. This is Chapter 13, Scale Degrees and Intervals. So we are returning to the idea of looking at gaps between notes, which you might remember from semitones and tones. But this time we'll be thinking in scales. So the first thing I need to do is to explain to you that when we count degrees of the scale, when we count gaps between the scale, we always include the first note as number 1. So let us say I wanted to know what is the interval between an A and a D. Well, A, B, C, D is how the alphabet goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a fourth. A to D is a fourth. Okay, so you always count the first letter that you're talking about as 1. Okay? So here are some intervals for you to learn and have a look at. The distance in pitch between two different notes is called an interval. If two notes are played one after the other, it is called a melodic interval because they're part of a melody. If two notes are played together, it is called a harmonic interval because it is part of a harmony. You can measure the size of an interval by counting the number of degrees of the scale that it includes. So a second contains only 2 degrees of the scale, a third contains 3, and you can see them written out next to it, a fourth includes 4, a fifth includes 5, and so on. The number of degrees is the number of the interval. So in grade 1, the examples always have the keynote as the lower note. Here are the intervals from the keynote in G major. Okay. The keynote is sometimes also known as the tonic, and you might see that referred. So make note of this, make sure you copy it out. Very important to remember this. So we've got a very simple exercise to do first, which asks us to simply write some intervals above a given note. If you're following in the exercise book, you might notice that this actually happens before the explanation I've just given. I don't know why it's out of order. Okay, so G to C is a fourth. G to A would be a second. They're always asking you to write the above, yeah? And then we've got a C here. They want a third above, so C, D, E, be a third. They've got an F here, F, G, A, B. Notice in the key signature this is actually going to be B flat, that's a fourth. We've jumped to a seventh, I don't know where we're out of order. Let's do the fifth. G, A, B, C, D. A sixth, D, E, F, G, A, B is a sixth. Seventh, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Notice this is a C sharp from the key signature. And F, an octave, another F. Here it is on that top line. Just counting up the notes. Yep. I'm writing the accidentals from the key signature. You don't need to worry about them though. So these are our interval pairs. Okay, let's have a look at exercise 2, which is going to ask us to name the number of the melodic intervals given. As we will learn in later years, in later grades, there are more complicated names for intervals. We can add to these names to be even more specific, but grade 1 we don't need to. Okay. So give the number of each of these melodic intervals, second, third, fourth, etc. So we just count the notes. Okay, so have a go at this, and when you're done, unpause the video and look at these answers. Just count up the notes. You should find these numbers. Notice it's not an eighth, it's an octave. So 8 VE for octave. Here we've got some notes starting on a G, that is a second, that is a fifth. Okay, so hopefully that was unproblematic for you, because it's just counting how many notes you need to fit in between and the first one, because the first one counts as 1. Let's have a look at exercise 3, which is all about harmonic intervals, but in the same way. So here, harmonic intervals. We're asked to draw them rather than identify them. That's fine. So we've been asked to write a third above a D, so that'll be an F, D major, F sharp because of the key signature. A seventh above a D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I genuinely do count on my fingers sometimes for this, but there you are. There's your seventh, D and C sharp. Asked to do a fifth, D, E, F, G, A. We're asked to do a second, D, E. For a second, we can't quite fit them directly above, so we draw them sort of next to each other, but even that does still mean play them at the same time. A fourth, D, E, F, G. And a sixth, D, E, F, G, A, B. And there we are. Now we're in C major, they've told us, so we've got C's at the bottom of everything. A fifth, C, D, E, F, G, as I say, counting on my fingers because it's always good to be safe. An octave, well, that we know that's another C. Yeah, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. A sixth, C, D, E, F, G, A. A fourth, C, D, E, F. A third, C, D, E. A seventh, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And there we are. Exercise 3 complete. I could probably draw a slightly better B. Why not? There we go. Okay, look at the melodic intervals marked with the square bracket. It says write the number of each interval. The first note is the key note in every case. Right, well then. The Surprise Symphony by Haydn is their example, and we've got a third. We've got a C to E, C, D, E. So you just see how many notes would fit in the middle. First one, 4A, this is a second because it's just C to D. Nice and easy. Oh, it does say, doesn't say where to write it, so just write it there. Oh, I think I've cut off the line. That's what I've done. Anyway, let's move on. I'll sing some of these as well in a second. So we've got the Holly and the Ivy here, and we've got G to E. G, A, B, C, D, E. That's a sixth. And it goes like this. So, mi, re, ti. What you'll start to notice is each of these intervals has a common sound. You can always hear a sixth, you can always hear a fifth, and so on. Purcell, a sonata of 4 parts, number 9, the Golden Sonata. This is lovely. I recommend listening to this on Spotify or something if you can find it. We've got an F, bottom F to a C. This is from the cello part. F to C, F, G, A, B, flat because of the key signature, C. Doesn't really matter, but it is a fifth. In that scale, there is a B flat. Okay, that's a fifth. And it goes Fa, Do, Fa, Mi, Re, Da. And then Elgar Salut d'Amour. This is lovely, very nice, schmaltzy bit of Victorian romanticism here. And we are going from D to a G. So D, E, F sharp because of the key signature, G. That's 4 notes. That's a fourth. And it goes like this. Fi, la, fi, mi, re, di, re, sol, 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 la. Bit of Rosamund from the second ballet of his unperformed opera. Underknown, shall we say. We just generally play the ballet music and suites and things from it. From Schubert. And we are going from a G to a B. G, A, B. That's a third. And it sounds like this. So, re, so, re, so, ti, re. Bit of Wagner now in F. We've got, it's letter F and also in F major and 2 Fs, so Fs all the way. That is an octave, 8 notes, yeah. F, G, A, B flat because the key signature, C, D, E, F, 8. And it sounds like this. Fa, 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 mi, re. And then a Beethoven example from the Missa Solemnis, a fantastic piece which I highly recommend. We're in D major and we're going from a D to a G. That is a fourth, D, E, F sharp because of the key signature, G. Fourth. And it sounds like this. Re, sol, fi, mi, di, mi, fi, sol, mi, la. And that's it for today. Relatively quick one. Hopefully it was painless and you are now able to name the numbers of intervals. See you in the next one.